Gabriel. Yeah. Oh, you already started. Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So we do have, everyone should have slide printouts, pens, water, anything you need before we get going? Perfect. How many of you guys have been here before? Couple? All right, well, welcome everybody who's new. All right, so just to go over a quick agenda for what I'm going to cover today, we're going to go over what's called the mind-gut connection, and that's going to be covering just the first half of our presentation. And so through that, we're going to go over what exactly is the gut and defining it, your microbiome, what's called the gut-brain axis, and then how inflammation can play into all of this. During the second half, we'll get to the fun part, which is foods. So looking over the various foods that can support your mental health, and the foods that can support either which one of your goals that you're going for, and then I'll give you specific examples of foods to eat, and then let you know how you can fill in some of these gaps. Okay, so way back when with Hippocrates, this quote is attributed to him, "Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food." Being that we knew for a very long time that what we eat affected not only our health, but we also knew that it affected our mental health to a certain degree. We knew that they were connected. For example, if you eat something like comfort food, you would feel a psychological effect when you would eat something. But how entwined this connection was only came to the attention of the scientific community back in 2004. So this is a very recent aspect to medicine. But before we go any further, I wanted to define what exactly is the gut. So while the gut is considered your entire GI tract, colloquially, it's usually referred to with just the small and the large intestine. Its main function is to break down your food, absorb it, and eliminate the waste. Your gut contains 70% of your body's immune system. It's not just for digesting your food, it's actually quite a powerhouse. It is quite a bit larger than it seems. If you were to spread it all onto one layer, it would take up more than a basketball court. So it is extremely large in terms of its surface layer. And it has more endocrine cells, these are the cells that produce your body's hormones, than the rest of your body combined. So it's basically its own system. It is huge in its implications for your health. Within the gut is what they call the gut microbiome. And this is just your gut's bacteria, the things that live inside of you. It contains 1,000 to 1,500 different bacterial species and over 1 trillion microbes. The amount of bacteria that actually live in you at any given moment will outnumber your amount of human cells. So sometimes what's walking around is more bacteria than it is you. Your gut bacteria are responsible for things like breaking down food, stuff like lactose. There's a specific strain that loves to live in our gut called lactobacillus that helps be responsible for this. It also helps to break down things like fiber and various other things that you consume. They help keep your gut walls healthy. They work with your gut wall to build up its immunity and to build up its strength so that it can function properly. It helps protect you from infections. And it produces neurotransmitters like serotonin, the neurotransmitter indicated in depression, dopamine, which is responsible for reward and pleasure, norepinephrine, which is one of our stress hormones, and GABA, which is an important neurological neurotransmitter. So to give a better idea of how exactly these two are connected, you can think of it as, you've got your gut, you've got your brain, and they seem kind of far apart from each other. And to provide such an example, you might think your mind is kind of like the CEO executive up in its penthouse office, and your gut is more of like a lower level worker. Besides, running into each other at Christmas parties, you wouldn't think that they would, talk a lot. But the exact opposite is actually true. These two are like teenagers talking on a cell phone. They cannot stop communicating with each other. At times it seems that one of them does anything, it has to let the other one know. And just like teenagers talking on a cell phone, we are not privy to this conversation at all. We feel the consequences of it, for example, getting a super high phone bill or suddenly having a silly teenager walking around the house. But we don't actually get to hear this. But they are talking to each other all the time. And if one of them is upset, so is the other one. They do not like it when the other one is upset. So They have this connection that is called the gut-brain axis, and this merely refers to the mutual communication between them, that whatever is going on with the gut, it tells the brain, and whatever is going on with the brain, it tells the gut. So how does your gut talk to your brain? And there are two main methods of this. The first is through what is called the vagus nerve. This is a main nerve that runs from your abdomen directly up to your brain. So this is a direct neural connection between your gut and your brain. This is a very quick method of communication, and the communication does go both ways. So if you think about how quickly you go from the instant you feel anxious or surprised or nervous, and then you'll get the butterfly feeling in your stomach or feeling your stomach in knots, that's how instantaneous this connection is. It's very quick. The second method is through the bloodstream. And this is a slower method of communication and not quite as accurate. It's much more systemic. And this is the method that neurotransmitters or hormones in your blood might use, or immune cells to communicate with your brain. So you might think, okay, that's maybe interesting, but why do I need to know that? What you eat affects both of these methods of communication. So foods can trigger messages through the vagus nerve that can cause what they call sickness behavior. Now, sickness behavior shares a lot of symptoms with depression. The reason for this is that our bodies have adapted over time that when it senses something might be wrong, usually through something like inflammation or sensing an infection, it goes, oh, we're sick, and you get those feelings of withdrawal. You want to stay at home, you want to curl up in bed, you don't want to go out, and that is your body protecting you, because way back when we had to do things like fight off predators or forage, it wanted to keep us nice and safe in a cave because we didn't have the energy to do any of those things, and we would be at risk. So the ones who would, stay in their cave when they were sick were the ones who would end up surviving. So that's where that method comes from. And so this sickness behavior can induce feelings of fatigue. It can make you withdraw and not want to go out. And there are certain foods that can trigger this behavior. And then foods can cause inflammation and or leaky gut that send blood messengers to the brain, triggering damage and widespread inflammation. Food also affects your gut bacteria, which is responsible for keeping your gut healthy, reducing inflammation, and your gut bacteria themselves send their own messengers to the brain. And in fact, your gut bacteria can play such a large role in your mental health that, to give an example, there are studies showing that if you take the gut bacteria from schizophrenic mice and you implant it into healthy mice, they then start to show behaviors of schizophrenia. So they are that entwined with each other, just the gut bacteria alone. So throughout all of this that I've gone through, inflammation is really key here. It's what can trigger the sickness behavior. It's what can tell your brain, oh my gosh, there's something going wrong with my gut. It's what will send your body onto high alert and can even cause things to leak out of your gut and go places where they're not supposed to go, including your brain. So people with mental health challenges show higher levels of inflammation not only in the brain, but also systemically throughout their body. Gut inflammation and damage is also linked to mental health challenges, and by reducing this inflammation both systemically and in the gut and repairing the damage, this can support your mental health and increase your quality of life. So, before we move on to the fun part of food, does anyone have any questions about the gut-brain axis? It's a complicated topic. All good? Perfect. All right, so to feed your mental health, we have 3 goals listed out here. Number 1 is keeping your gut healthy. This means reducing inflammation, which reduces damage to the brain and this sickness behavior. Feeding your gut bacteria, which are crucial in terms of supporting your gut health, reducing inflammation, and creating neurotransmitters that are important for your mental health. And then avoiding foods that harm you. By doing this, preventing damage to the gut and to the brain. So we'll start with the first goal of keeping your gut healthy. So the first food up on that is fiber. Fiber feeds your gut bacteria, and it also gives your gut a workout. Unlike some of us who might skip the gym for a day, a week, month, or years, your gut actually likes to work out, and this fiber really helps it do its job and keep it healthy through that method. Omega-3s. Omega-3s are crucial in lowering inflammation and also supporting your mental health and your mood. Healthy fats. These help to lower inflammation and boost your mood. B vitamins are crucial for not only protecting your brain, but other parts of your nervous system. And they also play critical parts in our mood and even creating some of the neurotransmitters needed. Tryptophan, I'm sure we've all heard about this come Thanksgiving time. Tryptophan helps regulate serotonin, and it does this by being a precursor to serotonin. Now, serotonin is very important when it comes to your mood, so you need to consume tryptophan in order to help make it. Tryptophan is what they call an essential amino acid, meaning our body cannot make it. We have to consume it in our diet. And then turmeric, which, it's a delicious spice, has made a, kind of a play in supplements over the past decade. And this helps to protect your brain and lower inflammation as well. So pretty much all of these foods are very important in terms of supporting your mood, lowering inflammation, and protecting your gut. So for the next goal of feeding your gut bacteria, first and foremost, you need to be populating your gut with good bacteria, and these are called probiotics. These help give you not only good bacteria, but by consuming plenty of probiotics, it can give you a wide variety of strains of good bacteria. Research has shown again and again that people who have lower diversity in their gut have much higher mental health issues. Then there's prebiotics. These are just things that feed your gut. Now, your gut bacteria can eat almost anything, but it definitely has food sources that it not only prefers, but food sources that are better for it. And these prebiotics fall into that category. Fiber, yet again, because your gut bacteria likes to munch on fiber. We actually cannot digest fiber. That's one of the reasons it gives our gut such a good workout. But gut bacteria can digest it, so it's a direct food source for them that they don't compete with us for. And then healthy fats, once again. The reason for this is that as we break down healthy fats, certain metabolites also feed your healthy gut bacteria, that they love to munch on these leftover bits of the fats that our body doesn't actually use. And then for the final goal, which is avoiding foods that can hurt you. Now, I will say going through this does not mean you need to cut all of these foods out of your life. Ideally, in a healthy diet, there is room for everything. All this is doing is raising awareness to the fact of what these foods can do to you so that you can limit them or put them in the context of moderation. So the first up is fried foods. Now, due to the nature of the fact that fried foods are frequently coated in saturated fatty acids and also coated in simple carbs, they can promote widespread inflammation and also harm your gut bacteria. So once it's not going to hurt you, maybe even a couple times, it's perfectly fine. So don't think you can never have fried food again, but it is important to limit it in moderation. Also, excessive sugar. This also not only harms your gut bacteria, studies have shown that chronic overconsumption of sugar can actually cause a version of brain damage. So it can affect our brain, how it develops, and how it can, heal itself, and in addition, its general health. So excessive sugar can be an issue. Again, I'm not saying cut out all sugar. I mean, let's be honest, most of us absolutely love sugar. But it's just a key to kind of keep it in moderation. Artificial sweeteners. These can harm your gut bacteria. I will say that the science on this is very, very new. And by that, I mean we know that they harm the gut bacteria. That's not up for debate. But what is up for debate is how bad it is. We don't know if this just causes minor mental health issues or if it's much more significant. But we do know that they harm it, so I've included it on this list. Certain emulsifiers can damage your gut, and they do this by creating a biofilm on the inside that can host bad bacteria right up to your gut wall and actually start to break it down. And then finally, foods that you might have a reaction to. This can be an allergy, something you're intolerant to, or foods you have a delayed food allergy to as a cause of leaky gut. So to go through some examples of these so you have a really good idea of what's good to eat, you will find on the list certain things are in bold. That just means that they fulfill more than one category. That's it. So for prebiotics, really good sources of this is beans, oats, bananas, berries, flaxseed, garlic, onions, asparagus, and leeks. So all of those are fantastic sources of prebiotics. For your healthy fats, I have here MUFA and PUFA. All that means is monounsaturated fatty acid and polyunsaturated fatty acid. Basically anything on the food label that doesn't show up as a saturated fatty acid. This includes flaxseed, again, olive oil, avocado, and nut butters. For fiber, we've got beans, oats, bananas, berries again, and flaxseed for a third time, so it's quite the powerhouse in and of itself. Bran, pears, apples, broccoli, and artichokes. For probiotics, yogurt has a massive reputation for being high in probiotics, but the key with yogurt is to make sure you're getting one that is unsweetened. As we've talked about, excessive sugar can actually harm your gut bacteria, so trying to get your probiotics through a sweetened yogurt is a bit of a double-edged sword. You're kind of defeating the purpose there. There's also tempeh, miso, and kombucha. And then some protective herbs that you can use in your cooking are things like turmeric, saffron, lavender, cinnamon, rosemary, and chamomile. So again, you can use these in cooking, you can have them in teas, wonderful protective effects for your mental health. And then just examples of food to avoid. Fried foods is pretty self-explanatory, but things like French fries and fried chicken. Excessive sugar in the form of things like candy, soft drinks, and white bread. And then artificial sweeteners, typically found in things like diet soda, chewing gum, anything that's advertised as low calorie or low carb can contain them. And these are sweeteners such as Sweet and Low, Splenda, aspartame. And then emulsifiers. So I want to go a little deeper into this. The three emulsifiers that I recommend cutting down or avoiding entirely are carrageenan, polysorbate 80, and cellulose gum. Now, these are very common in products like salad dressing, anything that has cream or just cream itself. Seriously, when you buy heavy cream, it'll have two ingredients, the cream itself and an emulsifier of some kind. Anything that's high fat and also baked goods, because it can act as a dough conditioner. Now, the reason I have these three specifically included and not others is that these three have a long history in research of showing that they actually damage your gut wall. In fact, some of them are used in animal research studies to induce colitis, which is an inflammation of your intestines. I personally have quite the experience with these. I have what's called inflammatory bowel disease. It is an autoimmune disease of the intestine. I was remission resistant, so I had issues going into remission, even with some of the strongest drugs that they had. When I found out about these three things, I cut them out of my diet completely, and I haven't had a flare since. So personally, I can't eat those three, but as I've said before, you know your body, you know how your body can react. Moderation is important. If you find something bothers you, anytime you have it, it is better to cut it out entirely, but don't restrict yourself too much here. So while getting all of this, these great sources from food is phenomenal, we always advocate for a food first approach. Food alone frequently isn't enough. And by that I mean some nutrients are not only difficult, but they can be pretty impossible to get from food alone. This includes nutrients such as vitamin D. Vitamin D is incredibly crucial in not only regulating your immune system, but also affecting your mood. Us living up in New England, 6 months out of the year, we can't even make vitamin D. If you wear more than SPF 8 during the summertime, you have also issues making vitamin D, and sources in food are absolutely negligible. So for us up in New England, it's very difficult to try to get vitamin D without supplementing it in some way. Tryptophan, as I mentioned, commonly associated with, for example, turkey. But the thing about tryptophan is that as an amino acid, when it crosses the barrier to go inside of your brain, it actually competes with other amino acids. because it is such a large amino acid, it frequently loses that battle. So if you consume tryptophan with another form of amino acids or protein itself, it might not be getting to your brain, or much of it might not be getting into your brain. So it is best to take in an isolated form when you have not consumed protein. L-theanine is frequently used for supports for mood and anxiety. It is naturally found in green tea. However, you would have to drink a lot of it to get the anti-anxiety effects, and by the time you've consumed that much caffeine, it might defeat the purpose. Probiotics themselves, getting it from food sources is absolutely great, and it's important to get them regularly, but getting a variety of bacterial strains can be quite challenging, and getting enough for your gut. Part of the issue here is that the American diet is full of things like antimicrobials and preservatives to keep our foods fresher for longer. By consuming those, we're also killing off our bacteria, good and bad. So we have to be consuming a lot of fermented foods or supplement it with a probiotic to keep replenishing what we're losing. And then there's also CBD, which frequently is used to help support mental health. That's just not found in food at all. I touched on turmeric a little bit earlier. It is a spice that you can use in your cooking. However, to use enough of it to get a decent anti-inflammatory effect, you would have to put so much on your food that you probably wouldn't like the taste of it anymore. And then there's your omega-3s, which most people are not consuming fish 3 times a week, whether they don't find themselves eating at home a lot or they just don't like the taste of fish. Many people struggle with getting that 3 servings of fish per week that's recommended. So how we can help fill in some of these gaps. We have something called the Basic 4 Plus. All of you have the handout included with your slides in the back. This is what we feel comfortable recommending to every single person, giving what the American diet typically is. So to give an example, we have vitamin D that we recommend due to, as I said, the fact that we live in New England and most people who live here are deficient. Also omega-3s, a good multivitamin that has those B vitamins not only in it, but active forms that make it easier for your body to use them. And then probiotics. We also do individualized support for people who feel that they need something more, or they might have a specific issue going on with beyond just needing a general boost to their mental health, and that can include, as I said, the L-theanine, the L-tryptophan, and the Curafin. We also do something called the delayed food allergy test. Now, what this looks for is your body reacting to food beyond an immediate capacity. We all know of regular food allergies. As you consume something, you might get hives, you might have difficulty breathing, you might have swelling, and that's an immediate food allergy. A delayed food allergy is caused by the fact that your gut is no longer holding food inside correctly. This is called the leaky gut. It goes into your bloodstream where it's not supposed to be, and your body goes on basically attack. It goes, that's not supposed to be there, I don't like that, and therefore when you eat it again, your body then recognizes it as something that had invaded somewhere where it wasn't supposed to go, and then wants to attack it again. And this can lead to symptoms that can show up for 3 days after you've consumed the meal, up to 2 weeks. So the delayed food allergy test helps identify foods that you're reacting to so that you can cut back on them while you're trying to heal your gut. And then lastly, we do personalized nutrition and health counseling for anybody who feels that they need some help, they need help walking through this, they don't know what to eat or how to do that. That's where we can come in and we can help. So some important takeaways regarding this. Your gut and your brain are intricately linked. You cannot impact the health of one without impacting the health of the other. Food affects both your gut and your brain. This can be both helpful and it can be harmful. And foods and supplements that reduce inflammation and repair your gut support your mental health as well. Now for this, I have gone over just a very general aspect of gut health and mental health. Obviously, mental health can cover a wide variety of issues, and so can gut health, but I just wanted to lay an introductory base here because let's be honest, you could probably spend an entire college semester going over this particular information. So as I said, this is very generalized, so if you have any questions regarding anything specific, please don't be afraid to ask. That's all I have for this morning. Our next talk is going to be natural support for cholesterol and heart health. That will be on Saturday, September 10th. And does anybody have any questions?